Welcome to Satsang. And a very happy Ram Navami to everybody. This sacred day of welcoming the divine presence into our lives, and that's really another really powerful message to it and meaning to the holiday is it's a day in which we welcome that presence of the divine in our lives. I mean, God is always there. As I was saying in the Ganga Arati, Ram was there long before Ram was there in the form that we know of as Ram. God is always there. But do we remember the presence of God? Do we feel the presence of God? Do we connect with the presence of God? So when we celebrate Ram Navami, when we celebrate Krishna Janmashtami, when we celebrate these holidays that are the appearance days of the divine, it's really days to just ask ourselves, is your heart open to God? God is here. Is your heart open? And if not, that's okay. As Pujya Swamiji always says, whenever you wake up, it's morning. So if you realize, oh my God, no, my heart is closed, okay. Now open it. It's the power of honesty. It's the power of introspection. It's the power of insight to realize, no, my heart is closed. Because only then can you actually start to open it. If we go through the world feeling like, I'm perfect, then there's nowhere to go from there. And then there's no answer. There's no solution to my suffering or my misery. But when I'm honest and I recognize, my God, no, my heart is closed. Or I'm welcoming God, but I'm welcoming God only when God wants to come on my terms. When God gives me what I want, does what I want, answers my prayers in the way I want them answered, then only I'm open. Like I'm somehow, dating God and deciding whether I'm going to, it's marriageable material or not. Like, does he do what I want when I want it or not? And then it becomes much more of a bargain with God than an actual relationship with God. So on this day, whatever your religion may be, whatever form, whatever name, or even no name or no form that you connect with God in, you still need to have an open heart or you don't benefit. You need to have an open heart or you can't realize. And so ask yourself today, is my heart open? Is my heart open? In the Ramayana, Pujya Swamiji was speaking in the Arati about the power of the Ramayana and how when it gets shown, everybody stops, everything stops, and everybody's just watching. But in the Ramayana, there's this beautiful comparison, almost a juxtaposition in a way, between two different women who both want Ram. And one is Shurpanakha, Ravan's sister, the sister of the demon, who herself is a bit of a demoness, but she's got all of these kind of demoness powers, and one of them is to make herself really, really, really beautiful. And she comes to Ram, trying to lure him, trying to entice him, trying to seduce him, trying to, like Maya wraps us up in her veil, trying to essentially spread that veil of Maya over Bhagwan Ram to lure him away. And he's completely uninterested, untouched, unenticed, unseduced, unlured. There's no interest. No interest, sends her away. And then there's Shurpanakha. And then there's Shaburi. So that was Shurpanakha. Then there's Shaburi, who is the song Pujya Swamiji was singing, is Shaburi's song. This not beautiful, not educated, not cultured, nothing from the perspective of society and culture, village woman who was so pure in her love for Ram that he actually shows up at her house. वो स्वयं चल के गए उनके पास. And this contrast between the one who has everything, but it's all a show. It's all the outer trappings of beauty, of love, of devotion, of everything. And he has no interest, not convinced for even a second. And then there's the no trappings, no drama, no nothing, just the pure heart of love. And God actually shows up on her doorstep. And it's such a beautiful reminder of just open your heart. Nothing else you have to do. Shaburi had nothing. Nothing else you have to do. Just love God. Just open your heart. Just be devoted. Just be pure. So on this day, it's also a very beautiful opportunity to just introspect and check in, like, how open is my heart? When the divine will appears in ways that are not necessarily what I wanted, that are not according to my desires, my version of how things should be, my agenda, how do I act? Do I accept it as God's will? Or do I fight it? How do I move through the world? Do I see myself? Do I see others as embodiments of the divine and therefore move through the world with compassion and love? Doesn't mean that we're not strict. Many of us are parents or teachers or administrators or, people you've got to discipline. You've got to be strict. You've got to have rules and laws and discipline. But are we seeing nonetheless that presence of the divine in all? Even the child we're scolding, or even the student we're punishing, or even an employee we're firing. Nonetheless, are we moving through even the mundane world with that awareness of the presence of God? And it's an incredible practice. And it's exactly the practice that we're being called to and that we're being offered. And it's something that's possible and available for all of us. So it's a beautiful day to recommit yourself to that practice. To see Ram or Krishna or the Mother Goddess or Shankar Bhagwan or however you worship God, doesn't matter. But to see that presence of God everywhere, in everyone, in everything, in every moment, including yourself, by the way. It's not God is in everyone but you. It's not everything is divine but you. So to see that inside the self as well. And moving into the questions. So starting with one coming from our online family. Some spiritual teachers say Life itself is the best spiritual practice. Kindly explain, comment if you agree. And this is from Parag Shah on our website. Life itself is the best spiritual practice. Well, what other option? Right? I mean, if you say, no, I want what's behind door number 2. There is no door number 2. Door number 1 is all we've got, life. This has to be our spiritual practice. It's not just the best spiritual practice. It's the only spiritual practice. Until and unless we have accounts of people coming back from being disembodied, coming back from that space in between life, end of this life, body is over, before they've taken another life. Until we've got accounts of that time and all of the meditation and all the japa and all the seva that they did without a body. And until and unless we can compare that to this is all we've got. This life is our spiritual practice, not just the best, it's the only one. There is no practice that is life averse. There's no practice that is anti-life. My mind, the reason that we do our sadhana, our meditation, our prayer, our seva, our japa, all of what we do it to purify our minds. The mind of this very individual being. My soul doesn't need to be purified. Spirit doesn't need to be purified. Consciousness doesn't need to be purified. Divinity doesn't need to be purified. The soul is not what awakens. We throw around words like soul awakening. The soul doesn't sleep. The mind sleeps. The soul is always there. Spirit is always there. Consciousness doesn't sleep. We sleep. Consciousness doesn't sleep. Even when we are unconscious, consciousness is there. The sun is on, but it's dark right now because the earth is turned away. But the sun is there. It's just that we're not connecting to it. We're not seeing it because we have literally turned away. When we go to sleep and we close our eyes and we enter that state of deep sleep, no dreams, it's essentially a state of unconsciousness. It's very restorative. It's wonderful for the body, wonderful for the brain. But it's essentially a state of being unconscious. We don't come back with any memories of deep sleep. But that doesn't mean consciousness isn't there. It's just that the mental faculties that enable us to access consciousness are sleeping. Like the earth is turned away, but the sun is on. So neither soul, nor spirit, nor consciousness, nor divinity, nor any of these things that are eternal, that are not part of my body, that are not part of this particular life, none of those things needs to meditate. Soul doesn't have to meditate. Soul's not looking to discover itself. The soul just is. Consciousness just is. The barriers are in the mind. And the mind is accessible to us, changeable by us, through the very physical brain. The neurochemicals, the electricity, the structures, the patterns of my physical brain are that which enable me to work with my more amorphic mind. Right? If I were brain dead, I couldn't work with my mind. I can only work with my mind when my brain is on and functioning. Then I can say things like, I am not this body. I can say things like, Aham Brahmasmi. I am Brahman. I am the Supreme Reality. I can say things like, Soham. I am that. Only because my brain is functional. I am still Brahman even without a functional brain, but I cannot know it. I cannot realize it. I cannot break through the illusion, the ignorance that says you are a 5'3", 53-year-old white American female who is now a monk in India. I can only break through that when I am here, mindful, aware, present, awake, engaged, functioning brain, able to work with it in this life. So our life is our only spiritual practice. In our meditation, in our seated practices, the ones where, our legs are crossed and our eyes are closed and we're sitting typically in a dark room. But our life is also our practice when we stand up from those practices. And that may be what this quote is referring to, that life is the best spiritual practice, meaning when your spouse, your husband, your wife, your parents, your kids, your in-laws, your neighbors, your friends, your co-workers, your employee, your employer, when they don't do what you want, when they act in ways that provoke you, that make you angry, that make you upset, that becomes your practice. It's very easy to be in peace like this. If I'm sitting in a dark, quiet room, we're not always in peace. The mind is still there. We can certainly be disturbed. But it's a lot easier to be in peace like this, especially if I have nothing to do. No phone that's ringing, no inbox, no to-do list, no place I've got to punch a time card, no place I've got to show up in order to get my salary, nobody looking over my shoulder, checking to make sure that my work is done, or that dinner has enough salt in it, or not too much salt in it, or that my room is clean, whatever it may be. It's a lot easier to be in peace like that. But then I've got to open my eyes and stand up off the mat and walk out of the dark room into the world. And to maintain that peace is the practice. To maintain that experience that I have in my meditation is the practice. So yeah, absolutely, life is the practice, which is wonderful because here we all are, alive, which means we have everything we need to practice. It means there's nothing that we could say, I need this. We've all got a life. And we've got access to our brain to work with the mind. And as long as we've got a life, as long as we've got a functional brain, let's use it as our spiritual practice. So yeah, I absolutely am in agreement with the quote. Other questions? Yes. Microphone is there for you.
Okay. So my humble pranams to you, Sadhviji. And my name is Pujya. Sadhviji, my question, and it's a doubt also in my mind, that what is the significance of prayers for others? The context is that I have my father's sister, my Bua. She is suffering from Parkinson's, and she herself is a very spiritual person, since as long as I recall, my childhood, my adulthood, as long as I know her, she's been worshipping, she's been, doing her rituals, and she believes in God. She herself also prays for herself, but the whole family now, questions that what can we do for her soul, because she is suffering to some extent. Thank you.
Yeah. It's so hard when someone we love is suffering. It's so hard, especially when it's something that feels like there's nothing we can do. Something like Parkinson's. And it's so hard, especially when that thing is something that we don't see an end to. Somebody has a cold or a flu or a stomach bug, or they're going through a bad breakup, or they get fired from their job. We know no matter how bad it is, eventually there will be a time, whether it's a week from now, a month from now, a year from now, that we're going to look back on this moment and I'm no longer going to be suffering. I may have a broken heart today, but chances are a year from now, I'm going to be able to look back on the ending of a relationship and say, it's all for the best. Or, that was awful, but I've pulled through. But you get these things, these physical illnesses, terminal diagnoses, other situations that they seem to just be there now forever. Nothing you can do. So, what's most important is to help her understand that the body is sick, but she is not the body. And this is obviously much, much more easily said than done. We can all say, I'm not the body. But give yourself something that hurts, experience some kind of suffering. It's very hard to remember that. But ultimately, that's the path. Even though it's not easy, that is the path. And I've seen, both in my life, those I've known, and I've also read so many stories of not only enlightened masters, but just beautiful, beautiful beings of light who are able to, at this final stage of life, come to a spiritual awareness that far surpasses anything they had before they got sick. It's almost like that type of diagnosis forces us, if we don't want to be eternally miserable, forces us into an awareness that I am spirit, I am soul, I am love, I am consciousness, I am not the body that is falling apart. And it's why I know many people who have had terminal life-threatening illnesses, cancer, tumors, other things, some of whom have died from it, some of whom have managed to miraculously recover. But in all of the cases, even those who passed away, every one of them has said how grateful they were for having had that. That doesn't mean everybody who gets those diagnoses is grateful. It means those who find a spiritual path, a spiritual awareness at that time, find an incredible gratitude, because what they realize is if they hadn't had that illness, if they hadn't had that diagnosis, they would not have discovered this truth about themselves. And so to whatever extent you can, and it's delicate, because you don't want to make light of something as painful, as difficult, as traumatic as watching your body fall apart. whether it's Parkinson's in the body, whether it's a dementia watching the mind. I mean, this is powerful cause of suffering. But if you can gently, gently, gently help her understand and just remember that she is that which is unchanging. She is not that which is degenerating. She is not that which is failing. And that even if she didn't have Parkinson's, eventually she was going to get sick and die anyway. And that she still would not be that which dies. Right? Pull out chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita and just read it to her over and over again. Reminding her over and over again who she is. But also simultaneously, one of the downsides of being spiritual is it's almost like there's no space to be human. Oh, don't cry, you're spiritual. Oh, don't be angry, you're spiritual. Right? It's almost as though if you are spiritual, there's no spaciousness, there's no freedom to actually have a human emotion, a human reaction. You're expected to somehow live 24/7 only in the highest level of spiritual awareness. And so a lot of spiritual people actually feel a lot of shame and guilt and negativity toward themselves for very normal, natural reactions that arise. Yeah, there's going to be anger, there's going to be pain, there's going to be suffering, there's going to be longing, there's going to be hoping for a cure, there's going to be a sense of non-acceptance of the present moment. That it becomes really easy to then throw on a lot of spiritual guilt on top of that and say, not only do you have Parkinson's, but now you're also a spiritual failure. Because look, you're cranky, look, you're angry, look, you're not accepting. Look, you have rag and dvesh, you've got desires and aversions. And you got to be really careful to allow people to be human. Having a human experience is not a failing. Yeah, we remember we are spiritual beings. And we are here in human bodies to have human experiences. If we were supposed to have the experience of, a dolphin, we would be in the bodies of dolphins. If we were supposed to have the experience of a tree, we would be in the shape of a tree. If we were supposed to have the experience of disembodied angel beings, we would be disembodied angel beings. But we're here in human bodies to have human experiences. And so as you help and support people who are going through very human struggles, yes, you want to give spiritual teachings and comfort and help, but you want to be really careful not to deprive them or make them feel ashamed or guilty or less than for their very human experience. Yeah. Beautiful. Other questions? Yes.
Thank you. Namaste, Sadhviji. I am so happy to be here. It's a dream for me, but I have other dream to be a mom. But the doctors, the life, and God told us to my husband and me, no. I am happy. I live my life. But sometimes I'm sad.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember that dream. I know that I need trust. But it's sad.
Yeah.
My question is how some people like me, some dreams don't come true.
So I wouldn't yet decide that your dream has not come true. She shared, for those of you who didn't hear, that she has always had a dream of being a mom, but that the life circumstances for her and her husband have not been able to manifest the child. Just because, for whatever reason, a child is not meant to be born through your womb, it doesn't mean that you cannot be a mother. Now, there's options, of course, around adoption, which is a beautiful option. I mean, there's so many children who would be so incredibly blessed, so fortunate, so grateful to have you as a mom. So remember that as a really powerful option. But also, you know, being a mom is not only about one child or two children or three children, whether they come from your womb or not. That urge to be a mother is an urge to give love, to nurture, to nourish, to care, to support, to help, to love. And if for whatever reason you and your husband decide not to adopt children, ask yourself, how are the other ways that you can have that beautiful and divine experience of being a mother? There's orphanages, even if you decide not to adopt a child. Well, you can go and volunteer in an orphanage. Go give time every week to holding all of the babies and playing with all of the kids who don't have mothers. Go and volunteer in schools. There's so many programs for children who are disadvantaged, who are abandoned, who are orphaned, whose mothers are drug addicts. When I was still living in California while I was doing my PhD, I used to volunteer at the state-run center for drug-addicted mothers. And the women would come in during the day. They would get free food, so it was an incentive to come in. They had a free hot meal. And they would get free childcare as long as they were in treatment. So it was also an incentive because anyway, being a single parent, taking care of a child is difficult. But especially if you're drug addicted, you know, they would love somebody else to take care of their kid for a few hours a day. So these women would come in. They would be getting counseling in addictions, and their kids would be in the daycare. And I used to volunteer with the kids. And they were babies, infants. Children who have been drug exposed in utero they come out of the womb already super disadvantaged. Even if their mothers were not still drug addicts, even if they were not living on the street, the kids have neurological damage. Incredible challenges, lifelong challenges. And it was a center filled with these kids. We weren't doctors. I didn't even have a PhD yet. The kids were too young to teach them anything. They were infants. In most cases, infants, toddlers. All you could do was hold them. That's all you did. Hours and hours. Just hold on the kids. Just hold them, you'd rock them. They'd cry. You'd hold them, you'd rock them. And it was incredible. I mean, it was an incredible feeling to be able to give that to the child. But it was also, for me in my studies, it was an incredible reminder of how our choices impact other lives and how important the addiction work is. Because it's not only your life you ruin. These women had already ruined their kids' lives from in utero. But I mention this because there's all kinds of programs like that you don't have to have any special degree to volunteer in. You don't have to have any special skills. And so that loving energy that you have, that maternal energy, give time, volunteer in pediatric hospitals, volunteer in these sorts of centers, volunteer in orphanages. Give your time. And again, think about adopting. There's so many kids who need loving homes. And if for whatever reason God decided not to send a child out of your womb, does not mean that God decided you should not be a mother. It just means that you had to get a little bit more creative. Many women become mothers without even planning it. Accidentally. You needed to be much more intentional, much more creative. But I don't think at all that the answer is you're not supposed to be a mother. It's just you're supposed to you're supposed to share that energy, that love with a child or children who don't actually come out of your womb. That's okay. Yeah, beautiful. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your evening, everyone. Beautiful day and morning to our family joining us online. And so much love to you all. I look so forward to seeing